The gathering of grain. In the land of Canaan, a deep shadow of famine had begun to stretch over the villages, and the fields, once golden and brimming with life, lay bare. The earth had grown silent with thirst, and the people whispered of hunger that could not be quenched by mere bread. Among them, Jacob, whose heart had carried both joy and grief through many years, looked at his sons with worry. He spoke to them of Egypt, a land where the Nile flowed with promise and granaries overflowed with abundance. "Go to Egypt," he said, "and buy grain that we may live through this famine." The brothers, burdened by worry and a past they could not forget, set forth on their journey. They traveled across dusty roads where the sun painted the horizon with gold and crimson, leaving their hearts heavy with the memory of their brother Joseph, sold into a distant land. Each step felt like a drumbeat of both fear and hope, for Egypt was a kingdom of strangers, and their journey was laden with uncertainty. Arrival in the Egyptian city. As they entered the bustling streets of Egypt, the air smelled of spices and rich soil carried from distant lands. Traders called out their wares, and oxen clattered on cobblestones, their hooves echoing through stone-lined streets. The brothers marveled at the splendor, yet their minds were fixed on their purpose, to purchase grain. At the granaries, they knelt before the steward, their voices trembling with urgency. "We are men from Canaan, starving and in need of food," they told him, seeking mercy for their families. The steward, a man of keen sight and sharp mind, observed them closely. They seemed familiar, yet he could not place them. He thought of the power of Joseph, the Pharaoh's mighty vizier, who had stored up grain for such a time as this. They were brought before Joseph, though they did not know him. The air grew tense with an unseen magic, as if the city itself held its breath. Joseph's test. Joseph, now clothed in the authority of Egypt, watched his brothers with eyes that flickered like fire and water. His heart wrestled with storms of memory and longing. He recognized them, though they did not recognize him, and a plan began to weave in his mind like the intricate patterns of a loom. He asked them where they were from, and they answered honestly, their voices carrying the cadence of the hills of Canaan. "You are spies," Joseph declared, in a voice both thunderous and calm, and his brothers quailed. Fear clutched their hearts like a cold hand, and they fell before him. "No," they pleaded, "we are honest men, not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of one father, and one is missing, but the youngest is at home with our father." Their words carried both truth and the shadow of guilt. Joseph, seeing their reactions, decided to hold Simeon as a hostage, binding him with cords that seemed heavier than iron and softer than silk, symbolic of both punishment and protection. The brothers' despair. The remaining brothers were released with grain for their families, yet the weight of sorrow followed them like a shadow at sunset. Their pockets held food, but their hearts carried the chains of uncertainty and fear. They returned to Canaan, and the grain was poured into their father's hands like the flowing sands of a golden river. Jacob's heart, heavy and weathered, recognized the grain, yet he wept for the absence of Simeon. "How can we return without him?" he wondered aloud, his voice shaking like a fragile branch in the wind. The brothers told of the steward, of Joseph, and of the instructions to bring the youngest, Benjamin. Their words were met with Jacob's anguish, for Benjamin was the child of his old age, the last thread connecting him to Rachel. His voice trembled as he spoke of the journey, of the dangers, and of the love that could not be forsaken. The return journey. And so, the brothers prepared once more. Their hearts were cloaked in apprehension, yet the necessity of survival guided their steps. They traveled the familiar paths, carrying both grain and worry, until they reached the home where Simeon was bound. The city of Egypt, with its towering walls and echoing markets, seemed both a labyrinth and a promise, a place where fear and hope collided under the sun's relentless gaze. The lesson of Providence. In this chapter, the unseen hand of Providence moves subtly. Joseph, though wronged in youth, acts with wisdom and measured restraint. The famine, a force that brings despair, also sets the stage for reconciliation and recognition. Families are tested, hearts are weighed, and decisions reveal both character and growth. The story whispers of the delicate balance between justice and mercy, between fear and trust, between the human hand and divine orchestration. Reflections and teachings. Genesis 42 teaches that the consequences of past actions cannot be ignored but can lead to redemption if met with patience and discernment. The chapter reveals the importance of integrity and honesty, as the brothers' confession shows the power of truth even amidst fear. It also highlights the necessity of faith and courage in the face of uncertainty. Jacob's family must venture into an unknown land to survive, trusting that Providence will guide them. Finally, it illustrates that reconciliation and healing are processes, often beginning with testing and reflection, and that the path to restoration may be hidden behind trials that test the heart and mind alike.